singing about a baby. I'm singing about a manger. I'm singing about a baby in a manger came to save me. I'm singing about an angel. I'm singing about some shepherds. I'm singing about an angel telling shepherds about a baby. He is the way, he is the truth, he is the life. He is God's only Son, the light of the world. He came to live so he could die, to be a perfect sacrifice. He gave it all for me, all for me. I'm singing about Jesus. I'm singing about a Savior. I'm singing about Jesus. He's my Savior, came to set me free. I'm singing about the Father. I'm singing about how he loved the world. I'm singing how the Father loved the world and sent a baby. He is the way, he is the truth, he is the life. He is God's only Son, the light of the world. He came to live so he could die, to be a perfect sacrifice. He gave it all for me, all for me. He is the way, he is the truth, he is the life. He is God's only Son, the light of the world. He came to live so he could die, to be a perfect sacrifice. He gave it all for me, all for me. I'm singing about a baby. Kids coming down?
Good morning. Good morning. You know, I have to admit, the idea of being the mother to the Son of God was pretty overwhelming. I mean, I was so young when the angel came. I wasn't sure I was ready to be a parent to any child. And this baby was not going to be just any child. If I had any doubt at all that he was special, the things that happened when he was born sure would have changed my mind. I mean, going to Bethlehem, having him so far from home when I didn't know anybody but Joseph, and then the shepherds showing up, and then later the Magi. I just couldn't talk to anybody about those things. I just hid them in my heart and thought about them whenever I had spare time. When Luke came to talk to me, he asked about that, and I told him, you know, I've been thinking about things for years, and he said, you know, it sounds like you've been doing some pondering. Pondering. Now that's a fancy word. But then Luke was a doctor, so he used fancy words. I asked him what I meant, and he said, well, it meant thinking about it, going over and over it in your mind, and just hiding in your heart for something to think about when you had time. Well, he was right. I'd been doing a lot of pondering. Over the years, as Jesus got older, every time he did something that was just a little different than his brothers and sisters, I would bring those things up in my mind and think about them. Couldn't really talk to anybody about them. Well, they'd have probably thought I was crazy. But when Luke came and asked all about him, it was such a relief to talk about all those things that had happened and the prophecies and how I'd wondered, what they meant and how I'd watched them unfold with my son. And then, of course, after his horrible death, so many of them made such more sense. And people started believing. I mean, they wanted to know what he was like as a baby. And I was just so grateful to be able to talk about it, to talk about all those things I'd thought of all those years. And you know what? I bet you guys believe too. So I'm going to hope that you pay attention to my son's story, that you listen, and that you do some pondering of your own. And next week, if you want, come back and I'll tell you just a little bit more, because I just love talking about my son's story.
We've been preparing to celebrate Christ's coming for the last 2 weeks. This is the third week in Advent. But you know, it's still way too early in the Advent season to stop preparing for the coming of Christ. So we're going to light the first candle again, candle of preparation. And last week we were reminded that Jesus is the fulfillment of hundreds of years worth of prophecy. How all through the Bible, the Old Testament and the New Testament, we hear about Jesus and his coming to earth as a baby was told about so many years before he came. So in order to remember the prophecy that Jesus fulfilled, we'll light the second candle again. And this week we're going to light a candle, and we're going to call it the candle of pondering. Now that's a weird word, isn't it? As Mary explained, it's kind of a word that we don't use much anymore. It's kind of like something that we expect to hear in an old country western show, pondering. You've been pondering that lately? But it really just means to dwell deeply on, to think deeply about. And so we're going to do as Mary said. We're going to spend a lot of time pondering things that she saw and she heard as her son, our Savior, grew up. You know, many believed, or should say many never believed anything that Mary ever said to them about her son. Many of the details about his birth and his life, she kept to herself until after his death and resurrection. Because if they couldn't believe the simple things, well, surely they wouldn't believe the astonishing things either. So as we celebrate, we have an opportunity to ponder, like Mary, the prophecies and the events. It's important that we consider every word that we can truly embrace about Jesus Christ, his life, his death, and his love. So this morning we light the candle of pondering, candle of very, very deep thinking.